Good morning, and welcome to the Alameda Connection on KCSM HD2. I'm your host, Scott Piehler. Every Sunday morning on the Alameda Connection, it's my pleasure to bring you the best of the Bay Area's Island City. From places to play, to places to eat and drink, to places to learn, to places where you can help your neighbor. Since we got started in September, we've done a lot. We spent a fair amount of time out on Alameda Point, visiting with Admiral Maltings, Vinyl Wine Bar, Almanac Adventureland, and the USS Hornet. In addition to the USS Hornet, we've explored some of Alameda's other great museums, like the California Historical Radio Society and the Pacific Pinball Museum. Of course, Alameda is no stranger to the arts, and we've enjoyed our time spent with the tap dancing Christmas trees, Rhythmix Cultural Works, and Radium Presents. It's also been my honor to share the stories of the people and institutions that serve our city. Alameda Pride, the Alameda Post, Alameda Haunts, and the Alameda Food Bank all represent the best of what Alameda has to offer. And since we all need that little spot to sit down and unwind, our travels also took us to the world-famous Forbidden Island Tiki Bar. That's quite a lot in just a few short months, and we have barely scratched the surface. That's right, the Alameda Connection is just getting started. This week on the Alameda Connection, a first. Usually, it's yours truly, one-on-one with a single guest. Well, this week, I have two people sharing the guest microphone. Mike Meyers and Cary Weigle, the owners of Bay Area institution Semifreddi's Bakery. From their beginnings in their Kensington Cafe, to their time in Emeryville, to their now well-established location on Bay Farm Island, Semifreddi's has been a part of Bay Area tables for over 40 years. Whether you enjoy a sandwich on one of their fresh Dutch crunch rolls, or a pastry in a local cafe that, odds are, was made by Semifreddi's, Semifreddi's is everywhere in Alameda. And when you can combine their numerous field trips for local area school children and their incredible record of donating to those in need, Semifreddi's is truly a corporate citizen that we can be proud of. And we'll finally get an answer to just what's behind that name. I think you'll be able to tell that we had a great time sitting down together as three guys who like to eat got to talk about food. Mike Meyers and Cary Weigle, the owners of Semifreddi's Bakery, this morning on the Alameda Connection. Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to the Alameda Connection.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you.
One thing I have to get out of the way because I am a teller and collector of dad jokes. Mike, how many Mike Myers jokes do you get? And are they horror or comedy? Because you can go both ways.
One or two a week.
Okay.
Depending on the season. Definitely prefer the Mike Myers humor side.
Yes, as one should. Now, on the subject of names, Semifreddi's. First time I encountered that, What does that mean?
Cary, you tell this story better than I do.
I've been the plant engineer for Semifreddi's for 15 years. During those 15 years, I was not privy to the inside knowledge. There was a lot of speculation because it appears to be Italian.
Okay.
It's not quite Italian, but it's very close to partially cold in Italian.
Okay.
And so there was some speculation, kind of encouraged by the previous owners, that maybe it was because bread hot out of the oven needs to cool for the structure to really form. But you don't want cold bread. You know, ideally there's this little liminal space between hot and cold. Maybe that was it. Maybe our bread has an Italian style. We really specialize in a lot of ciabattas. Maybe that was the angle. But it wasn't until I owned the company with the previous owner divulged what was a deep, dark, dirty secret. I think actually is really in alignment with the zeitgeist at Semifreddi's. We try not to take ourselves too seriously in an area that takes food sometimes way too seriously.
Just a tad.
The story, as it was told to me, as I understand it, is that the founder of the company had traveled in Italy and loved a little neighborhood cafe where they had stayed called Semifreddi's.
Okay.
So when they returned from their travels and started their bakery, they called it Semifreddi's. And some years later, traveled back to that little town in Italy and discovered that was not the name of the little cafe they had loved. It just sold essentially soft serve ice cream and had a sign in the window that said Semifreddo, which is, there's gelato, there's semifreddo. That misunderstanding has been codified 40 years later in the beloved Bay Area brand, Semifreddi.
This was all a big misunderstanding.
You touched on a little bit of the history. Let's go a little more into the history, because Semifreddi's now in year 41.
Yeah,
we're at now.
Yeah, 1984.
Okay, so let's go through from the start of that cafe.
Started off as a cafe,
Kensington on Palooza Circle, north of Berkeley,
making 4 products.
Yeah, in 400 square feet. Took over by Mike Rose
and Tom Prenier. That's right.
And Barbara Rose. Around 88, I think. Then they opened another bakery in Emeryville.
Okay.
On Hollis.
All right.
Which is kind of how Cary and I met them. We worked at another bakery down the street, and they made a really good sandwich, several good sandwiches. So we'd come up. There's not that many places to eat in Emeryville.
No, it's true.
In the mid-90s. So just kind of got to be friends with these guys, Tom and Mike. Emeryville kind of just changed dramatically. Right. Pixar was expanding. That bakery was on Hollis Street within the Pixar compound.
Yeah, the building is currently called West Village. And in case you were wondering what's there, it's the gym, the locker room, the showers, and development.
So eventually moved to Alameda in 2008, Bay Farm Island.
And how big is that facility?
32,000 square feet. Yeah.
How many people do you employ?
140, 24/7, 7 days a week.
360 days a year.
Yeah.
Which begs the question, what are the 5?
Couple of Thanksgiving, couple of Christmas, and New Year's.
So what prompted the ownership change? When was that, and how did that come about?
It's about 2 years ago. The previous owners were looking to retire because they were getting into their late 60s.
And survived COVID.
Yeah. Made for a ripe opportunity for them to pass it along.
They wanted someone who would continue the values that they shared. I think that was paramount. And having some experience with the company. I mean, Cary's worked there for quite a few years. 15. Shared history going back to Emeryville. Tom was my mentor for many years. He approached us, asked if we'd be interested. Foolish enough to try this.
Start with you, Mike. What was your professional journey that led you to where you are now?
Boy, 1993. I think I came back from a long trip to Alaska, hitchhiked back through the Yukon, landed in Berkeley, and saw an ad in the East Bay Express. I wanted to just, try different things. So it was a baking job in Emeryville for a company that makes little French Madeleine cookies.
Oh, okay.
That was my start with food manufacturing. That company grew quite a bit. Decided to then start my own company, which did contract manufacturing. Semifreddi's asked me to do some work for them. And that was the real connection, the real business connection between me and Semifreddi's.
What about you, Cary? What led you to where you are now?
The radio listeners can't see where we're located.
We're actually in the Bay Area Radio Hall of Fame room at the California Historical Radio Society.
Well
Memorabilia galore.
All right, memorabilia galore, and an entire radio workshop next door with oscilloscopes and soldering irons, and looks just like my garage I grew up in Palo Alto, late 70s, early 80s. It's hard to decide where to start to tell my personal story, but I started off with a father who was an electrical engineer, did a lot of electronics projects with me as a kid. So as I grew up, I had some electronics chops. And then in college, I was studying molecular biology. Did a lot of fiddling around with guitar amps and pinball machines and video games. And all my friends studied computer science, graduated. This is pre-dot-com, graduated to get jobs in the dot-com world while I was slaving away as a lab technician. They said, hey, those video games you had in high school? Any chance we could rent those for our game room? So pretty soon I was making more money renting arcade games than I was as a lab tech. I made the decision, the conversation you never want to have with your father, to tell him you're leaving your job at NASA to work as a pinball machine route guy. Essentially, I really developed my chops working in molecular biology, automating small machines with my radio/pinball level automation skills. Then I transitioned to the pinball, did that kind of full time. Pretty quickly, it became just a job of moving games in and out of buildings, which is not fun. So I sort of shopped that out, and had always dreamt about building my own house. So I started working in construction to learn the trades. And then the dot-com crash happened. The pinball company disappeared in the space of days. I had a pretty good job working in construction. So I was doing restaurant work. property rehabilitation type of stuff. And then Mike reached out and said, hey, Cary, I got this bakery. We don't have a lot of money. We need some pinball level automation to try and get the efficiencies up. We're going to need someone with some food science background because we got a food safety program. We're probably going to need to build a new plant. So we need construction experience. Okay. You seem like the perfect guy. And that's how I got into the bakery world with Mr. Myers. We worked together for a number of years.
Our wives have been friends since college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Our introduction was
through our wives.
Oh, fantastic.
So, yeah. Thank you, Catherine and Judy.
Yeah. Semifreddi's has a long history of community involved. What started that and what continues to drive that?
You have to ask Mike and Tom what started that. It comes from their values.
What keeps that going?
We have the same values.
Okay.
I think that's a big part of why they wanted to sell the company to us.
Yeah, in a lot of ways, we don't look at ourselves as the new owners so much as we are caretakers of a community resource.
So this is almost taking on a mantle.
Correct. Semifreddi's had gotten bigger than Mike and Tom themselves. It was sort of a juggernaut of community engagement. We do 100 elementary school tours annually, so third graders come through, and they've been doing that for long enough to where we actually had a school tour come through the other day, and I didn't recognize the teacher and asked her, hey, is this your first time? She said, no, I've been here before. I apologize for not recognizing her. And she said, no, as a student, I came through. So she's now bringing her class. So it's just become such an embedded part of the community. It carries on and has its own momentum.
Now, another area where it carries on is you have some seriously long-term employees.
We just had an employee retire that had a 31-year tenure.
Wow.
We have a number of employees with 20 to 25-year tenure as well. It's a great place to work. It is a family environment.
One of my friends is Sush from the company. First time I met him, he was an evangelist for Semifreddi.
Yeah.
It was actually one of the most intimidating pieces of being the new guy.
Oh, I can imagine.
Is the history of all the relationships, of all the Thanksgivings spent together. I mean, we do Thanksgiving, like, we basically try to make as many breads and pastries as we can in a 24-hour period. And then every year it's a big challenge.
Right.
Felt kind of like, oh, I have to learn everyone's name. I have to know their kids' names. I have to know their spouses' names. One of the harder parts for me, I think, feeling like I belong.
One thing I love is your workers earn bread and earn bread.
Yeah,
because everybody gets to take something home. Right?
Oh yeah,
right.
absolutely.
Goes home every day with a loaf of bread.
What does a typical work day at Semifreddi's look like?
Ooh.
Is it a 24-hour operation?
Yeah, 24-hour operation, and there's a lot of different job titles and disciplines. We have people in retail, we have drivers, we have office, we have people operating machines, we have 600-pound mixers.
Oh yeah.
But then we also have people that are seeding baguettes and braiding challah and doing real artisanal hand labor on the bread itself, rolling baguettes, things like that.
I had Shemaine Wofford, who is the owner of Vinyl Wine Bar out on the Point, and she talked about how when she goes to a restaurant, she can tell when there is no love in the food. The first time I had a Semifreddi, I was like, I know from institutional baking, this is not institutional baking. There is love in the loaf, which may sound corny, but it works.
You know, I think a big
I'm glad you recognize it.
Yeah,
because there is.
A big piece of the family environment that spills out into the rest of the world is that a lot of our employees are really proud of the fact that they work at Semifreddi's. They're proud of the work they do. They're proud of the work that their peers do. And as a result, they talk about it. Since they talk about it when they're at work, they want to make something that they can be proud of that when they talk about it outside of work. That's their art form.
One stat that jumped out on me, you have a 95% recycling rate at the factory. What are you recycling? What I mean, is that dough? What do you mean? What all are you recycling? Because that's incredible.
That's actually a big deal currently in all food manufacturing. Everyone's trying to reduce food waste. Semifreddi's was very early to this. We have a business model that is different than a lot of other bakeries. We have a consignment business. About half of our business is wholesale, so people pay us, we give them bread. The other half is in a grocery store such as Safeway or Berkeley Bowl. You'll see our bread in the rack. That bread gets put in the rack that day. Whatever sells. Whatever doesn't, we take back at the end of the day and then deliver fresh bread the next morning. All the breads in our racks are fresh that day. And this is pretty unusual. As a result, we're taking back a lot of bread. It's a little bit like playing 800 hands of blackjack all every day. You know, you win some, you lose some. But as a result, we have a lot of bread that comes back. The bread that comes back goes into one of three streams. It can either be turned into a new food product, such as our crostini, which are spectacular. There's kind of a cult following for our super garlic crostini, if you've had that. We also have a sourdough butter and a Kalamata olive. We can also turn that into stuffings, breadcrumbs, things like that.
I was wondering if that's where the croutons came from.
That is where the croutons come from.
Okay.
We don't sell enough of those products to recover all of the bread that comes back.
Okay.
So some of the bread that comes back, if it's had proper handling, it can be donated to the Alameda County Community Food Bank. The third stream actually gets ground up and sold as chicken feed.
There's a great picture on your website with the Alameda County Community Food Bank acknowledging 44,000 pounds. What was the time frame to donate 44,000?
That was for a year, right?
That was less. That was actually only 7 months.
Really?
Because
they'd pick up every day.
What is your distribution range for your product? How far? I mean,
we get about 35, 40 miles radius from Alameda. Not far.
Oh, it's not like bread travels that well, if done right.
But again, everything's fresh. So we got to be able to get out, deliver new bread, return the day-old bread every single day.
Do you have a single biggest customer?
Safeway has a lot of locations.
Yeah, we delivered at about 65 Safeways.
Yeah, so they're probably our biggest customer.
How many varieties of things do you make?
About 60. We have about 60 SKUs.
Okay.
And that can range anywhere from pastries to rolls to hard breads, crostini.
What is your best seller?
Ciabattas and our baguettes.
Okay.
Pretty much our best sellers. The cinnamon twist, though, is coming in strong.
Oh, let's start with you, Mike. What do you have personal favorite?
We make a miche bread.
Now, that's a term I'm unfamiliar with. What's a miche?
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a sourdough, but it has some multigrain parts to it. It's a really versatile bread. It's not widely available, sadly, but it's almost just my go-to. It's hearty. It's rich. My kids like it. What more can you ask for?
There you go. Oh, you care.
Yeah, for me, it's a three-way tie. I like our levain, which it's got some whole wheat flour, and it's got a good natural leavening, a real rustic, kind of darker sourdough. Then our cinnamon twist, I eat it every single day. My kids were completely raised on our cinnamon twist.
Yeah.
It is a remarkably good product. I make French toast with it at least once a week. And then our sweet baguette.
Here's a question from somebody who came from the East Coast, discovered the Dutch Crunch roll, and went, oh boy, this is fascinating. Why is that product so regional?
I've never had one that can travel. Like a lot of our breads, they're good for 24 hours. They're good for maybe 48 hours.
I actually did bring one to the East Coast for a very specific reason. I had a trip to Maine in June, and I said, I'm going to do this. So I actually bought one fresh, put it in my luggage, brought it to a Maine clam shack, and I said, please bring me the whole belly fried clams, the good New England ones. And I said, just ignore what I'm doing. And I made a clam roll with one of your Dutch Crunch rolls. It was one of the best sandwiches I have ever eaten.
Bay Curious actually did a show on the Dutch Crunch.
Okay.
Because there's another name for it, which is Portuguese tiger bread.
I think I just saw this article recently, actually.
Oh, really?
It wound up as an SF Gate article as well.
And I know that there is a big historic Portuguese community in, I want to say, sort of Half Moon Bay, San Francisco, San Mateo coast region.
Okay.
It has some roots locally in that community.
Okay.
Some plucky investigative journalist could take this a little further.
You probably get this question a lot, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Gluten-free. There's no options currently, so you probably hear it, but I'm just going to ask because I know, like my wife, for example, is going to ask, how come I never get that?
We have a lot of what we call fugitive flour, bakery engineering term, which is essentially flour in the air. If you're trying to manufacture low gluten products, you could do that in our facility. But if you want to be gluten-free, you really don't want to do it in a facility that's also producing any bread products.
Let's go back when the ownership change happened. Did COVID have an impact on what you were doing? Were you able to, or how did it impact?
Yeah, COVID had an enormous impact.
Yeah. Everything shifted to more of a retail grocery model. All the cafes closed, all the restaurants closed, all of our wholesale business shut down. The fear of working, we were never shut down. We didn't get to work from home.
Right.
We had to go to work. So we were essential workers. Those first year or so, it's just a lot of fear. Like your coworker. Am I going to get sick? Am I going to spread it? Am I going to bring it home? All the precautions to keep everyone safe seems so paramount at that time.
I mean, a couple highlights. One is we lost I don't know, 70-80% of our pastry business in a couple days, because all the cafes shut down. Anyone buying from an open pastry case was no longer buying. We took some of our more robust pastries, Mike was referring to this earlier, and moved them into a clamshell grocery format. So specifically our morning buns. We have an extraordinarily popular morning bun.
Right.
Nobody knows we make it because it's sold through cafes, restaurants, hotels. Other people are retailing it. And unless you're buying it at our Kensington location, you don't know that it's ours. So that was our first experience putting that under our brand in the grocery format. And it was wildly popular, particularly because people were staying at home. So they had time to take those morning buns, put them on a baking sheet, put them in the oven for 5 minutes, and discover that they are spectacular if you put them in the oven. So I've become evangelical about getting people to heat up their morning buns. We were able to make up about 60% of our pastry sales just through a couple of grocery items similar to that. Another piece that's really critical, we mentioned the food bank. One of the decisions that the previous owners made that I will have eternal respect for, they wanted everyone's lives to continue as normally as possible for as long as possible. In service of that, they decided to continue operating the bakery, even though the sales were down. They asked senior leaders to take pay haircuts. They stopped taking pay. They made the company as lean as possible, but kept the day-to-day worker who was far more sensitive to these things than the rest of us. So they kept the company essentially working full steam. It was actually a very safe place to be because we have high exchange, air exchange. The engineering of the space is actually inherently very safe for something like COVID. And then the question was, what do we do with all this bread that we're making because we're not selling it? So we called the food bank and said, would you guys be able to distribute this? We essentially started baking essentially a semi a day for the Alameda County Community Food Bank. And when COVID subsided and sales returned, the food bank had communicated how important it was for their operations to have this fresh baked bread. They could essentially place orders or have some real regularity. We decided to continue the project with the Alameda County Community Food Bank. We work with the Alameda Food Bank and 300 other community-based organizations. We actually have donated $500,000 annually since COVID of fresh bread and pastry.
Low carb craze annoying for y'all?
I mean, these are the existential fears that every baker deals with, you know? Every time. I got to say, during COVID, everyone started baking their own sourdough. And there was a real moment of like, oh my God, the gig is up. Everyone's going to make it themselves. And then everyone discovered what a titanic pain in the butt it is to make sourdough. Keep it alive. It's like having a pet. You got to have a babysitter if you go on vacation for your starter. Low carb, home baking, gluten-free.
Bread's been around thousands of years. I think we're going to be okay.
What is the most surprising thing about Semifreddi's?
One thing people wouldn't expect, a fundamental piece of what we do, is our sourdough starter, which has been around for 40 years. So a lot of bakeries would keep their sourdough starter tightly under wraps. They would go to great lengths to keep it as pure a strain as possible. As a molecular biologist by training, I can tell you that it has a doubling time of 20 minutes. So over 40 years, with the evolution occurring within that population, you do not have the same strain that you started with. So it's kind of a myth in the baking world that having some hyper pure strain is somehow a secret ingredient that is going to imbue magical properties to your bread. Quite the opposite. What you want is a really robust, active starter. And the way to achieve that is to essentially have an open starter, or a starter that can be inoculated by wild yeast in our San Francisco Bay Area, where we do have a strain of microorganisms that are responsible for the San Francisco style sourdough. This is not a myth. This is something that is demonstrably true. And so our starter, people are often surprised to find out that we don't treat it with a religious, doesn't stay hermetically sealed. In fact, a number of sister bakeries who will remain nameless, their fermenters have broken down and they've lost their starter. And Semifreddi's loaded up Rubbermaid buckets full of starter, drove it over there, restarted their starters. Those bakeries I consider to be our cousins.
One surprise for me, being still relatively new, is just the real hands-on aspect still of a large commercial bakery. I mean, we rely on our artisan bakers to manage time, temperature, humidity, all these factors. Every single day is a new day. I just respect that so much.
One of my favorite pairings of Semifreddi's is Encinal Market's roast beef, which they make themselves, on a Dutch crunch roll. Do you have any particular favorite food pairings with an item from Semifreddi's?
I definitely think the cinnamon twist.
That's what I was going to say. French toast.
French toast.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's hard to avoid that one.
That's perfection.
A seeded sour baguette dunked in some really nice olive oil is just heaven to me.
Okay.
Maybe a little slice of cheese on the side, but it doesn't even need the cheese.
Good to go.
Yeah.
Also, a Saigon sandwich, banh mi,
Ooh.
is another great crossover.
Yeah.
Semifreddi's food crossover.
Why does Alameda work for Semifreddi's?
It is central to the Bay Area. We can make it down to the South Bay. We can make it all the way up to Napa and get back in the same route, in the same day. If you get out before 3 a.m.
Right.
Yeah. If you didn't get back before the traffic hits, you're fine. So it satisfies that. It's a great community. We're down in Bay Farm Island, so it's safe. It's accessible. It's all those things.
So here's my question. I always like to kind of put the guests on edge with, which is you've got company coming into town. You've got to take them out to 3 meals in Alameda. Where are you going?
Number one, I say we would go with Trabaco.
Okay.
Yeah, we love Trabaco.
All right.
Yeah, they have our ciabatta there, but I also just think it's a really good meal. Number 2, Scolari's.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tough to go wrong.
Yeah.
All right.
We went to Scolari's a lot when we were negotiating the sale.
Okay.
That was like our little meeting spot to discuss details. And then what's the German one again?
Oh, Speisekammer.
Speisekammer.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're tough to go wrong with Speisekammer. How can people best keep in touch with what's going on at Semifreddi's? Website, Instagram, what?
Well, we do have a nascent Instagram.
Coming into the modern era in that way.
We've recently renovated our website. It's not a full relaunch of the website, but we gave it photos of what we're doing, how we currently look. We do have Instagram and Facebook.
And again, we do a lot of tours.
Okay.
3rd and 4th grade is the sweet spot.
Got it.
We donate a lot of tours to auctions.
Okay.
So people can bid on an auction item.
Cool.
Yeah, we get a lot of that.
That's fun.
Yeah, that is fun. I mean, when you hear 3rd and 4th graders in the lobby, I immediately have a good day.
I was going to say, it's tough to be grumpy when you see that.
It's fantastic.
Right. And when you hear them ooh and ah when a 500-pound dough blob gets dropped into the dough cutting machine. Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I feel like we do the tours more for us than them.
Well, Mike Meyers and Cary Weigle from Semifreddi's, this has been a blast.
All right.
Nothing better than talking good food. So thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Scott.
Yeah, it was
Take
fun.
care.
Thanks again to Mike Meyers and Cary Weigle, the owners of Semifreddi's Bakery. If you'd like to keep up with what's going on at the bakery, you can check out their website at semifreddis.com. That's semifreddis.com. And if you'd like to keep up with their latest product offerings, the best way to do that is to follow them on Instagram. That handle is Semifreddi's. You can also check them out on their Facebook page. Coming up next week on the Alameda Connection, we'll start 2026 with a visit to Altarina Playhouse and their artistic director, Katina Pasillas-Latoul. We'll talk about the history of one of the Bay Area's longest-running community theaters, how they successfully emerged from the COVID-19 lockdown, and what's coming up for the 2026 season. Again, that's Katina Latoul, the artistic director of Altarina Playhouse, next week on the Alameda Connection. After that, we've already got some great guests lined up for you to look forward to. Liz Story of Deep Ocean Exploration and Research, Chef Henry Awayan of Whisk Cake Creations and the author of the Ube Baking Book, Gia Schneider of Natel Energy, the folks out on Alameda Point who are making hydropower safer for fish. You can also look forward to a conversation with Bay Area Radio Hall of Famer Stan Bunger, the author of Mornings with Madden, as well as the folks behind nationally recognized barbecue restaurant Fixque. That's all coming up as 2026 gets underway here on the Alameda Connection. If you've only recently discovered the show, there's a few ways you can stay in touch. Of course, you can listen to the broadcast Sunday mornings at 8 a.m. on KCSM HD2. You can also stream the show from the kcsm.org website. You can subscribe to the show in podcast form on Apple Podcasts,
Spotify, and Amazon Music. Explore all the past episodes on YouTube. The channel's name is The Alameda Connection. The best way to stay up to date with what's going on is to follow us on Instagram. That handle is Alameda Connection. If you have any ideas for a future guest, feel free to email me, alamedaconnection@gmail.com. Thanks, as always, to the California Historical Radio Society for providing our recording location for my interview with Mike and Cary. And as always, thanks to guitarist Bill Hart for providing our theme music. The song is called Beachside Isle, and the album is Watch the Sky. I'm Scott Piehler. Hope you'll join me next Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on KCSM HD2 for the Alameda Connection.